Hey guys, this is Gaijin Hunter. I have been absolutely in love with Stellar Blade. I've been playing it non-stop since it came out, and I'm on my third playthrough now, and it's just fantastic. Super good action game. However, there's one topic that has come up that I'm really interested in, which is the English. I think this is a really good opportunity to sort of look at language, just take a small scene, compare them, and show you why the Japanese localization of this game is absolutely fantastic, and the English one comes off a little too direct and a little awkward. Okay, for this I chose a very innocent scene that's very early in the game. It's just an interaction between Eve and Adam. You just got out of the tutorial area, you went to the town of, or city of Zion. Not a lot of people around, things are looking pretty rough, and you know, he's asked you to get some parts or find some parts for him to help him repair the ship so that you guys can head out to your next location. So you go ahead, you get the part that he's looking for, and you come back to him and have this small little exchange. Nothing really important is being conveyed here outside of urgency and just sort of the personality of the characters. So let's watch it through in English once, and then I'm going to pick it apart a little bit and then show you the Japanese and how they handled it.
I brought back what you asked for. Here.
Great work, Eve. How was your walk around the city?
It looked a little sad. So much empty space. Anyway, let's go to the wasteland, Adam.
Well, there are still some issues with the tetrapod steering system. So I'm afraid we're not able to leave just yet.
Then when will you be ready?
Unfortunately, it's going to take longer than a day.
Then I'll go ahead on foot. You can use the drone to guide me.
What? The wasteland is a lot bigger than you think.
I can't just sit here and wait. In fact, I want to see the wasteland with my own eyes.
You're one of a kind, Eve. All right, I'll guide you with the drone.
Eve! Please be careful! Yes, thank you.
The wasteland is that way.
So again, that's the scene in question, nothing serious here, so no spoilers. But you can see that it feels a little somber. The relationship dynamic between her and Adam is a little unclear. The word choices and just the flow of the conversation feels a little stilted, a little awkward. And overall, it's just, I would consider it feels like a translation. Now I'm going to play the Japanese version of the scene, but I don't want to just have the English subtitles as they were in the English dub. So I'm going to put on new subtitles on the bottom, which sort of more better convey the feeling of what's being discussed, and then we'll go through it line by line and I will pick it apart and tell you what goes on inside the mind of a localizer.
頼まれたパーツを取ってきた。これ。
助かったよ。街の様子はどうだった？
どこも人気がなくて、ガランとしてた。とにかく、まずは荒野へ向かいましょう。
実はまだテトラポッドの操縦桿を修理してるところなんだ。悪いがすぐには出発できそうにない。
あとどれくらいかかりそう？
少なくとも1日以上はかかりそうだな。
それなら歩いていく。ドローンで道を案内して。
正気か？荒野はお前が思ってる以上に広いぞ。
でもここでじっとなんかしてられない。それにできたら自分の目で荒野を見て回りたいの。
物好きだな。仕方ない。ドローンで案内しよ
う。イブ、気をつけてくださいね。ええ、ありがとう。
荒野はこの先にある。
頼まれたパーツを取ってきた。これ。
I brought back what you asked for. Here.
So I think the English choice here, the I brought back what you asked for, the emphasis is on you, which I think is wrong. And also I brought back is a very passive way of talking, right? And I think that's kind of the reason why we got the read that we got from the voice actress. Like, I brought back what you asked for here. Where in the Japanese, it's much more assertive. Like, I got the parts you were looking for. You know, I went and I got them. And that's the emphasis here. It technically in the Japanese, she was saying, I got the parts you asked for here, which also works just as well. But I just put you were looking for timing reasons, but they're pretty much interchangeable. But yeah, I think brought back is kind of a conflict here because, you know, she's very much like, hey, I got it, let's go, like next task, and he's gonna, you know, come up with the, hey, sorry, but I'm not ready yet, and then she's like, well, I'm going anyways. So she's a very assertive type, and so I think I got the parts definitely works better than I brought back.
助かったよ。街の様子はどうだった？
Great work, Eve. How was your walk around the city?
So I found this response from Adam quite off, especially with the writing. So starting out with great work, Eve. It's not that bad, but I think this is too direct of a translation of the phrase that I know exists in both Korean and Japanese, which is otsukaresama, which it's just thanking somebody for doing something for you or completing a task. But when you say great work, Eve, like, one, he's using her name, right? Which we kind of have to adhere to because of timing reasons. But, you know, when you say, like, hey, good work, Eve, it does put you at a position of, like, superiority, right? Like, you're above her. Like, you're a boss or, you know, a supervisor saying, hey, good job there, Eve. So I definitely think because that's not the dynamic between these two, that, one, he needs to be happy. In the English, he sounds like maybe they punched in this line and they forgot the context because the voice acting is just not, good job, Eve. Like, he just doesn't sound really particularly happy about it.
Great work, Eve.
Where he should be. He should be saying thanks. Like, this is really helpful. Thank you. And I think just saying thanks is a better way of just getting through the thought. And so we can move to the next line, which has a very important sort of subtle note. The next line, I think, also is probably a voice direction mistake, not necessarily the actor, but how was your walk around the city? It has this melody to it that you often get when you don't really know if there's something that you're trying to get at, right? It's just more wishy-washy, like, well, how was your walk around the city? Well, that's great. Okay, let's go. It's just something that, you know, you'll hear when there's time constraints and they need to draw it out a little bit more. Like, maybe he said it naturally. It's like, how was your walk around the city? But they wanted to make it a little bit longer, then you'll stretch it out. Like, how was your walk around the city? And it's just not natural. I think it happens when lines just are lacking context and direction, or maybe they were scripted with too little words or something like that. Anyways, she's not going around like, how was your walk around the city? The point in the English here is like, you know, like she was out for a stroll. She wasn't. They were just coming back from seeing someone important. He says, hey, I got to get this part for repairs. I'll meet you back at the dock. She got the part. She's back here. So, like, how was your walk around the city? It's like she's not going around shopping and, well, maybe the player is, but that's not the task at hand here. So, another thing, this is kind of, you know, the town is in shambles, yes, but this is kind of like his hometown. Like, this is his place and he's showing her for the first time. He kind of like has that bravado, like, so what'd you think? You know, like, he's pretty proud that they're managing to rebuild this town and get back some type of life in this barren wasteland of an earth. So, you know, he changes his tone here, especially in the Japanese, and he's like, so how'd you find the city? You know, like, he wants to know her actual thoughts. Like, what did you think? What did you see? So it's much more straightforward and I think more in line with what he's trying to say, and has a really nice rhythm with her sort of more sad take afterwards and then getting back to the conversation.
どこも人気がなくてガランとしてた。とにかくまずは荒野へ向かいましょう。
It looked a little sad. So much empty space. Anyway, let's go to the wasteland, Adam.
So here is a common translation mistake I see, which is he asked her a question, how was your walk around the city? And she answers, it looked a little sad. That's not an answer to the question, right? Like, how was your walk? It looked a little sad. My walk looked a little sad? It's obvious here that the subject needed to be, what did you think of the town? And she says, you know, it looked a little sad. but then she puts the reason why after. So when you start with "it looked a little sad," you really don't have any context as a listener on what she's talking about. Is she saying it looks shabby? Is she saying that it's depressing? And then she goes on and says, "so much empty space." It means that there's wasted potential, right? Like there's space that isn't being used, but that's really not what she's saying here. In the Korean, I know she uses the word sad, but she says because it's kind of like a no man's land, like there was no one around, so it was kind of sad. In that case, it makes sense. I like what the Japanese did here, which is they implied the sadness through her tone. So instead, she focuses more on the emotion and the observation. Like, I went all around and I didn't see anybody. Like there was nobody around. So empty. And it's implied that it's kind of a sad thought and, it's desolate without hitting it too on the nose. And I think it works much better. This one I think is a problem of flow. She's coming off saying, "so sad, so much empty space. Anyway, let's go to the wasteland, Adam." And she's got a downward, almost depressed inflection for the entire line. It just doesn't really come across. You don't really understand what she's trying to get at here.
Anyway, let's go to the wasteland, Adam.
Where in the Japanese, she's like, "Anyway, first things first, we got our first task in front of us, which is to go to the wasteland, so let's do that." There's lots of stuff they need to do, and a lot of help that they can give, but, they've got to start somewhere, and that's going to be the wasteland. So I think there has to be a better transition here, and she shouldn't sound sad when she says it. Let's go to the wasteland. It should be more matter of fact, is the way you would say that. So definitely agree with the idea in the Japanese here of not saying the name, and I think in English as well, it comes off a bit dry when you start referring to each other by first names at the end of sentences.
実はまだテトラポッドの操縦桿を修理してるところなんだ。悪いがすぐには出発できそうにない。
Well, there are still some issues with the tetrapod steering system. So I'm afraid we're not able to leave just yet.
I think the problem with this line is maybe on the editing side. I think they may have accidentally combined two takes because you can hear the "just yet." And he's almost punching it for time. Like maybe they time compressed it, or they had a take where they accidentally cut off the end of "leave." It just sounds a little too snary. I like to call it the Nickelodeon voice, like, "we're not able to leave just yet."
So I'm afraid we're not able to leave just yet.
Overall, this line's not too bad.
あとどれくらいかかりそう？
少なくとも1日以上はかかりそうだな。
それなら歩いていく。ドローンで道を案内して。
Then when will you be ready?
Unfortunately, it's going to take longer than a day.
Then I'll go ahead on foot. You can use the drone to guide me.
So this is just, again, I think, a bad catchball with the subject of the sentence. Like, he's ready. Like, he's ready to go. The problem is that he's got work to do. He's got to fix the ship. It's the ship that's not ready. So for her to say, "when will you be ready," makes it almost sound like he's the one who's dragging his feet here, when it should be more, when will it be ready, the ship, because he says that the steering wheel still needs time. Or you can go for the more direct approach, which I like they did in Japanese, which is just how long do you expect it to take?
Fortunately, it's going to take longer than a day.
I think the read here, which I have a problem with, is probably a result of the script, which says, "unfortunately, it's going to take longer than a day." It almost sounds like he's barking back at her, like, "well, how long is it going to take?" "Well, it's going to take, sorry, princess, it's going to take longer than a day." And you can definitely hear that in his delivery, a little bit of a bite.
Unfortunately, it's going to take longer than a day.
I suppose with the right read, maybe that line could work as it is, like, "unfortunately, it's going to take longer than a day." But to be safe, it might be better to do something like, "it's going to take a few days." But even in the Japanese, he says it's going to take longer than a day, but it just doesn't have that connotation of like, you're being unreasonable here. Like, look, it's going to take longer than a day. So I definitely think in order to make sure that the line hits right to various people who speak English either as a first or second language, it's better to be more clear here and just say it's going to take a few days.
Then I'll go ahead on foot. You can use the drone to guide me.
This next line's not bad. The read, there's something about it that's not perfectly clicking, but it's pretty good. So I don't actually have any much critiques about this. I just think maybe like with the then I'll go on foot. it could be taken the wrong way. I think, like, well, in that case, I'll walk. Like, she's being really matter of fact here. Like, hey, we're waiting for a ship to fly somewhere. Oh, the ship's not gonna be ready until like tomorrow or the next day. Okay, I'll just walk. Like, she's showing how bullheaded and how, like, she's not gonna sit and rest on her laurels. Like, she's got things to do. So there's no hidden meaning behind it. She's just saying, look, okay, in that case, I'll walk. You just guide me with the drone. So again, I think it's a pretty good line. I just think maybe that then could have been a little bit better.
正気か？荒野はお前が思ってる以上に広いぞ。
でもここでじっとなんかしてられない。
What? The wasteland is a lot bigger than you think.
I can't just sit here and wait.
So here I think they dropped the ball again on the hidden meanings behind the sentences, right? So he says, what? Almost like she said something unexpected. And then he just says very nonchalant, the wasteland's a lot bigger than you think. So I think there's a tonal problem here. His reaction at the top is too strong, considering how weak he is on the second half of the delivery. But also there's kind of a funny joke and also, hey, I know better. In Japanese, he says, are you insane? He just blurts it out at the top, like, you insane? Wasteland's like a huge place. What are you talking about? Like, because he knows what he's talking about, right? But he doesn't mean it like, it's just a little quip, right? It's personality. He's just like, he steps forward and he's like, don't go in over your head. Like, what you're saying is crazy. So I think changing the top there with, you serious? Or you crazy? But something that's not a really large reaction, it's just more of under the breath. And then just being like, hang on, like, it's way bigger than you might think. This next one is a common issue I see also with direct translations, or things that remain a little too faithful to the source and stop thinking a little bit about the target language, which is in English we do a lot of catch ball with words, right? We don't just say statements at each other, right? Well, she says, like, okay, well, I'm going to walk there. You can guide me by drone. He's like, what? This place is like really large. And then she just says, I can't just sit here and wait. So she's not really reacting to what he's saying. There's no natural flow to it. Where I think in English, something like, yeah, but I can't just sit here and do nothing. Like, I'm not gonna do that. So I think the voice actress did a really good job with the script she had. I just think having these little in-between words would have helped her out a lot with making the flow go up and down a little bit more natural.
それに、できたら自分の目で荒野を見て回りたいの。
物好きだな。仕方ない。ドローンで案内しよう。
In fact, I want to see the wasteland with my own eyes.
You're one of a kind, Eve. All right, I'll guide you with the drone.
So this next line's a really hard one because there's an obscure fact that they're trying to say here, which is, going through an area in an airship, versus, walking around and seeing it with your own eyes. There's this common thing with her that you don't know yet at this story that she likes to go out and do. She likes to collect things. She likes to see things. She wants to feel things and sort of get an impression of it for herself. But you can't convey that in this line. And this whole with my own eyes is a really tough one to say. So they said, in fact, I want to see the wasteland with my own eyes. I don't know if in fact would be the right way to say it. It just seems a little weird. I don't see the logical jump. She says, look, I'm going to walk the scene on foot. In fact, I want to see it with my own eyes. So because this is kind of a weird statement, I think adding the besides at the top would work much better for flow here in English. Because she's sort of reinforcing the idea that, she can't sit around and wait. And besides, she wants to go see the area, like get outside and walk and see it for herself, right? You could even say that. Besides, I want to see the wasteland for myself. But if you say that, then you can read it like, I don't want to go with you. I want to go alone. So it's going to have to be covered by performance. But I think the in fact is just a translation artifact. So this one, you just have to think about, right? So she just said, I can't sit around here and wait. And I need to act. And besides, I want to go out and see the wasteland myself. And he says, you're one of a kind, Eve. Like, in relation to what? Like, what is he referring to here? You're one of a kind, Eve. Is he hitting on her? Is he just praising her for wanting to see stuff with her own eyes? it doesn't really make apparent sense to me what he's trying to get at here. Where I think, I think in the Korean, he's actually saying, well, it seems like there's no stopping you, so fine, I'll go, I'll do the drone, and let's do this. The Japanese has a really interesting word choice, which is monotsuki. It means that she's really curious and she wants to know things and go out and prod things herself. Like she just wants to get out there and know. It's impossible to convey that in one word in English, I think, here. But the whole idea is that a lot of the robots have their function, they do their thing, and they're not as curious as she is. She asks a lot of interesting questions. She asks about people's feelings, and there's something special about her. So I think he's just making a comment like a shrug of his shoulders, in a very positive way, right? He's reacting to her personality here. So You're One of a Kind, I think, gets that right energy. I just think it's hard to read into what he's saying. So I think something more general, like, you really are something. Like, what a piece of work. Like, man, you're not afraid of anything. Like, there's many different ways to interpret that. So just my idea on a slightly better take on this line. This line, perfect. I actually have no qualms with this line at all. I thought the delivery was great. The way it's written is great. Hits all the right notes. So good job.
イブ、気をつけてくださいね。ええ、ありがとう。
Eve, please be careful. Yes, thank you.
Okay, at this point you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, Gaijin Hunter is such a nitpick. But here this is more performance note than it is localization. But when she says, Eve, please be careful, you can tell through the body language and just the tone of everything that, what she's saying here is just, be careful out there. It's not like she's talking about a very specific thing like, oh my god, you're going to do that, please be careful. Like, I can't stand what happened to you last time. It's more of a general thing. She's just being very courteous and chirpy. So I think the line was delivered really well. So Eve, please be careful. And, she's just going to respond with, gotcha. Like, of course.
Yes, thank you.
The response, though, and I think the actor did a good job, but like, yes, thank you. Like, with 2 hard stops, that's a really hard line to say in response to just somebody enthusiastically waving their hand saying, see ya, be careful out there. And you were like, yes, thank you. It's so dry. Will do, thanks. Or you got it, Lily. Or of course, or okay, thanks, or something, right? Like, yes, thank you is a hard one to do, so I commend the actress for that acting. Anyways, I can't believe I just spent this much time on such a small, insignificant scene, but I wanted to go through it. I find this stuff really interesting. Localization to me is an art form. It's a form of, it's creative work. It's not just, like, put this in this language. It's not easy. It takes a lot of context, and often translators don't have all the context because things are changing in development all the time. So I always, I give the benefit of the doubt to any voice actor or translator from the get-go because I don't know the situation in which they were working. But I definitely do see where people are saying the characters feel devoid of emotion, especially Adam, or just that it feels awkward and weirdly translated. I think there's something to it. When I played it in English, I felt the same. They do have some good voice actors there, so I think it's more of a problem with script and method. But yeah, I was going to make a few tweets just because I find this stuff interesting, and I think for people who haven't done localization work or translation work or anything, or speak 2 languages, it can be very interesting, I think, to just step through these scenes one by one and look at them sort of from a view of both translation but also just localization, right? Like, what flows more naturally in the target language? Because I'm basing this off of the Japanese, which itself is a localization because this game is Korean, so go figure. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if this was way too long and you'd want something more concise, there's a better format, you're not just interested at all in localization or localization deep dives. Let me know. I'm just trying out something new here. I wanted to talk about the game in a way that is different than how everybody else is talking about the game. I love it. Please go try it out. There's a demo, not a paid advertisement. I just really like the game. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, happy translating.